Now we will have a very, very interesting and relevant panel and discussion. What is next in e-commerce? And we heard this morning in the opening session the importance of transactional models. So I hope that all of the speakers are already here. And I would like to call on stage first the moderator of the next session, Jan Kegelberg, who is the head of e-commerce activities at Otto Group Russia. Give an applause to Jan. And Otto is for a while already in Russia, so you can speak of experience. And we call on stage together now. Who else?
Today with me we have Maelle Gavet, CEO of the Ozone Group. I guess most of the people know this already. Secondly, also a very Russian well-known person, Oskar Hartmann from Kupi VIP. I wasn't sure if this microphone is on. Oh, we have one, but it's... Okay, now we're getting better, so I don't need this. Also on stage will be Guy Schory from eBay. I'm really looking forward to a discussion with Guy.
Where's Guy? Wonderful.
And last but not least, we have Jan-Gisbert Schultze, from managing partner from Acton Capital Management.
Applause to him. Okay. So floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, the topic is the future of e-commerce. When you look at my panel here, we have the opportunity to discuss these topics, number one, on a global level, as well as very specifically on a Russian level. In order to kick off today's panel, I want to present a few slides showing what has been happening in e-commerce on a global scale. Of course, it's a very broad topic. Many things have appeared in the last year, so I can only touch on maybe the biggest ones, and I guess with my panel we can then discuss all the topics that might be of interest to you. We will have a Q&A session at the end, probably about 5 to 10 minutes, so save your questions. We really look forward to discussing those as part of the panel. Let me kick off with, this is the slide, I can hardly see it. Well, it's supposed to be working. It's not. Good. Nothing's changing here. We have a technical person here. Oh, here we go. A little slow. All right, when we start talking about e-commerce, of course, one thing that always comes to mind is Amazon, one of the biggest e-commerce players in the world. When you look at their webpage in 1995 and 2012, you would have the feeling or the impression that not much has changed. You basically have the same layout, you have some pictures, you have some products. So the question is, why are we talking about the future of commerce when basically for the past 15 years it looks like it's all been the same? But we know that there has been a lot of change. And the question is, what is driving this change? And there are several factors influencing this. The biggest one that I see today is the smartphone. We all have one, we all use it. With the smartphone, suddenly it's the device that we have every time, which stores all the data, lots of information on us. When we look at the information it saves and it allows us to share, it is on who we are, who we know, where we are, where we've been. So there's all this information that can suddenly be stored and used in order to bring about change in e-commerce. And one thing it definitely has brought change about is when we look at the social aspect, because now we're actually able to not only share when we meet our friends or when we sit in front of the computer, but now we can share anything, anytime. And that, of course, has a big impact on the social environment. And as we've seen in the past couple of weeks, of course, the Facebook IPO has told us how much social is worth. And we also see lots of other players just in the past few years coming up with social, and their valuations are going through the roof. So we definitely know that the smartphone is just the beginning of making this go even further. So the question also will be, how will social influence our e-commerce and e-commerce strategy in our projects? Whoops. That doesn't look the way it's supposed to be, but we also know that by 2015 we will have more internet access coming through smartphones than from PCs. So we definitely know that, okay, the smartphone is there, it allows us to share, and it will be the biggest device that we will ever have to go onto the internet. So of course that will have an influence on electronic commerce. Even in Russia, we have today a mobile penetration of 150%. So basically every second person in this room does not only have one mobile phone, they have two mobile phones. So once this translates to smartphones, of course right now it's not all smartphones, it's regular mobile devices, but once we get to this point where all these devices are smartphones, of course we will have a potential shopping channel in everybody's pocket. So this is also a question why people are asking themselves, okay, when I do something, what comes first? And we know now in the United States, it's definitely mobile first. So if you have a startup, if you go into commerce, even when it's just a social product, investors as well as founders ask themselves, what is our mobile strategy? If you don't have a mobile strategy, well, you better think of one. What's a good example why this is so important? We just had the Facebook IPO, and what was one of the reasons or one of the discussions that we had with the Facebook IPO? Facebook doesn't really have a mobile strategy. It's not in their product. They have a problem monetizing mobile. And this is just an extract from their prospectus, which basically said it's not part of our product, and it's one of the sort of financial risks that you have when you buy a Facebook stock. So with all of this, suddenly we have social, local, mobile. Wherever you are, you can socialize. Wherever you are, you can post. So all the local comes in. And mobile, of course, is driving all of this. Well, it's a buzzword. As I said, Eric Schmidt is using it, so we might as well. But what else do we need when it comes to commerce? Of course, there must be payment methods, right? So payment methods have to change, and it's also a very interesting topic that we will be discussing in the Russian context, because payment methods in Russia definitely differ from the payment methods that we have in Europe or in the United States. We see some products here. We have Square, very innovative product in the hardware device. We, of course, have Google. We have a product from eBay, PayPal, which I guess Guy will also be able to share some insights on how this drives e-commerce for eBay. Well, so that was my short introduction. We know that there's lots more topics which can be discussed, and I look forward to doing that with my panel now. And the first question I'd like to ask is, of course, when we see these changes, there are, of course, investors in this world that have to deal with it on a global scale, because now investments are not so much more local anymore, but even go on a global scale. So how does it, Jan, how does it influence, number one, your portfolio that you have already? Does it change anything in the current investments, as well as what drives your perspective on looking at future investments?
Maybe coming back to your chart on Amazon, where the claim is a little bit what has really changed in the last 10 years in e-commerce. A quick review on what has happened, because I think there has actually been quite a bit of innovation. It started off with Amazon being a kind of category killer application in books, and then moving to other categories. It has been with eBay inventing consumer-to-consumer e-commerce, and then moving more and more into B2B, to C e-commerce. We have been focusing as a fund very much on the next step, which was verticalization, be it in electronics at the beginning, be it in pet supply, be it in fashion, be it in prescription and sunglasses, be it in even grocery, where we have a very unique model which we invested in. So we went into that area. I think the next big innovation, which actually came from Europe, was the separation of first and second season, Vente Privée, which really invented the private sales model, and Oskar, who brought this to Russia. There are further innovations. If you think about the whole rebuy model, we invested in a company called Momox, which is reselling used products, digital products, and trading them on separate platforms like books and DVDs and stuff like that, growing rapidly. There's the whole idea of subscription, Shoedazzle. So there has been a significant innovation in the last 10 years in e-commerce, but I still think we're very much yet at the beginning.
Guy, maybe over to you, particularly from an eBay perspective. Jan has just already elaborated on it. You started out as a B2C company, but now you've gone much, much broader, and particularly taken all these different trends into perspective. So what's eBay's perspective on the trends? Where does eBay see itself in the future, and which is the major trend that it's trying to grab? I think there's probably a few, I would assume.
So I think what we're seeing is that we're currently at an inflection point in commerce, and this whole notion that used to be these distinct lines between e-commerce and the in-store experience are, these lines are increasingly blurry, and we're this incredible time of tremendous change and rapid pace of innovation. And it's being driven by consumers, and it's being enabled by technology. And so, I'll give you an example. You used to walk into a large retail store, looking for clothes and, electronics. You'd consult with the sales associate. Should I get this product? Should I get that product? Today, with the mobile penetration, users are coming into the store. They've got a barcode scanner. They've got their own. They're doing research. They're finding better prices at another store down the street. So really, the whole notion of these distinct e-commerce versus local commerce has really been blurring. And so really, eBay, we see this as a $10 trillion. It's going to be a $10 trillion market for retail in 2013. And so what eBay is trying to do is two things. One is enable great consumer experiences and allow our consumers to really take advantage of all these trends of social, local, and mobile. And then at the same time, we also want to enable and partner with retailers. So it's become this increasingly more challenging environment given all this incredible innovation. So how do we actually give retailers tools in order to be successful in this new environment? So these are sort of the two things that eBay is really looking into right now on a global scale.
You already mentioned the eBay working very strongly in this in the local sector. One of the examples would be Milo. You had as far as I know, you had a test with Toys R Us. What was the biggest learning from that experience? Is there anything that you can present to the group?
Sure. So we acquired a company called Milo in 2010, and for folks who might not be familiar, what Milo does is it hooks into real-time inventory systems of offline retailers and brings that inventory online, so it can be searched online. And one of the things that we did was a very, that we were very excited about, was a pilot with Toys R Us, where you could use Red Laser, our barcode scanning application. Let's say you're at a friend's house and there's a new PlayStation that you're really excited about and you want to get one as well. You can scan that product, find the best deal via Milo. We'll show you actually a mile away from your house, they're selling that product. You can actually pay instantly on the phone with PayPal and then either have it be shipped to your house or have it be waiting for you in the store to be picked up within a very short amount of time. And so what we've seen here is consumers are, sometimes they want instant gratification. They want to get something today. They don't want to, buy it and wait for it to arrive. So local commerce is enabling all that, but we need to bring that inventory online and make it searchable. And so that's what we're doing with Milo, and that's where Toys R Us was a partner of ours in this, new way of shopping where you can actually get the item waiting for you in store, all done with your mobile phone. And so the whole notion of enabling consumers to buy anytime and anywhere is really critical here with both local and mobile.
Okay, excellent. Maybe now let's move a little bit over to the Russian part. Maelle, from your perspective, what is, when you look at you've been in e-commerce for quite some time, and we know that Ozone has been one of the first players in Russia. I think it started in 1999, so it's a long history of e-commerce in Russia. What would you see from a Russian perspective as, let's say, the most important trends that you need to follow or where you have to be part of?
I think we see a lot of things happening in the Russian market at the moment in e-commerce. We see first a lot more investors, and the fact that DLD for the first time happens to be in Russia, I think is the sign that the Russian internet is bringing more attention to itself, and with it more money, hopefully. Then if we look at the market from the inside, what we see is a lot more new projects, and I think Oskar will be able to talk about it even more than me. A lot more startups, some new areas who've been booming, like the fashion area. That's not by chance that Ozone acquired a shoe company, an online shoe company, a couple of months ago, Zapato, just because we looked at this market, which was almost inexistent 2.5 years ago, and now it is the most growing market here. And then if we look at mobile, obviously this is a trend that we're very much following, looking at, but we can't, I would not say that at the moment this is an absolute boom. it hasn't changed very much the industry so far in Russia for many reasons we can talk about later if you want to, but apart from the smartphone penetration, which is obviously much lower than in the West, but it's catching up very, very quickly. I think there is a general need to educate the customers to that new way of shopping. This has been done in the US before, in Japan, in Singapore, etc. There is also a need to create a mobile payment ecosystem, which at the moment just does not exist in Russia. And if you look at the countries where it actually happened, again, like Japan or Singapore, they both choose very different ways of developing this mobile payment ecosystem, but it does exist, and it's not here at all in Russia. And then finally, I think there is a general need for retailers like us to actually push more application. A lot of us do not have even a mobile application. I think we're probably an exception, but but it's still not very much there. So for a lot of customers, the question would be, okay, even if I want to, my shop doesn't have this mobile application.
That brings me to Oskar. Knowing that, well, Coupi VIP is sort of this big brand that always stands there, but I know that Coupi VIP also, when it comes to this direction, is now going into offering e-services for brands out there. So looking at this basically means, okay, Russia is not as far as the rest of the world, and we have to solve much simpler problems first, or what's your perception on the market?
No, I think, first I love social, mobile, local, I really love. But the problem is that there's also warehouse delivery and customer service. And just to make it more real, I give you a short story. When I was 18, I came back from the US and I started my first e-commerce company in Germany, copycat of bodybuilding.com. And I had no idea about anything in the world. And my delivery rate was 98%. Because the way you work in Germany, you just get the orders on eBay, for example. The post comes to you, they pick up the orders. The next day, 24 hours later, you already get the thank you letters from the customer, okay? In Russia, you hire 3 McKinsey consultants, you give them 10 million euro, delivery rate will be 30%. And that's not because they're bad or stupid, that's because it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard, and the basics are not working. Just last week, there was a company, they offered me to get acquired, and I looked at the KPI, and this is so unbelievably bad that I'm shocked because it was run by 3 McKinsey people, and it was. Is everyone blushing now? No, but
half of the panel used to work in BCG,
So the key is that delivery and warehousing is not working in a proper level. So when you speak about this front-end innovations where you try to reduce the friction that the customer can buy any second he wants, but then you have so much back-end friction that this front-end friction is kind of secondary to it, right? So I think that one of the trends we have to see in order to have a big e-commerce market, we have to see a trend of very significant infrastructure investments around about 50 warehouses that have to be built and equipped for e-commerce and to be able to process more than 20,000 orders a day. Call centers and outbound delivery. All of us, we are doing outbound delivery ourselves. Maelle and me, it's not because we like it, because it's 50% cheaper and faster and more efficient. And what happens is the following. Because this is so expensive, logistics is so expensive and inefficient, what happens is that like 90% of the e-commerce models don't work in Russia. Everything with a low AOV is impossible, because when your AOV is, let's say, 40 euro, and OPEX cost is 30 euro to deliver an order, it kind of makes no sense, right? So a lot of consumers cannot get a lot of the value, like, for example, pet food delivery, cannot get it in Russia because it is just cost inefficient to do this business. So what we will see is that the next trend will be that we will see an immense number of e-commerce startups dying because they cannot find the infrastructure they need in the market, and they cannot afford to build themselves, because not every small bodybuilding.com copycat can afford to have their own outbound delivery all of Russia and warehousing and customer service, and they literally cannot outsource it. It's impossible. So once they start growing, they raise some money, and then it doesn't work, it makes no sense, and then they try to sell to Ozone or to Kupi, and we are always in a bad mood, we don't buy, and so we will see a lot of companies dying, and there will be a real consolidation. There will be a really strong consolidation in the market, because sooner or later we will have to ask the questions: how many delivery networks can be built, and how much infrastructure can we consolidate to actually bring to the consumer a service that is acceptable? This is one of the major trends that will happen, consolidation. And the next major trend that will happen is that all of the offline retailers who have been sleeping the last 10 years or just making money in different ways, they will come online. There will be like 100 or maybe 99% of offline retailers will have some solution for online. And we already see it. So it used to be 40, 50. Now in Germany it's about 78% of the brands, they have an online shop. And almost all of them outsource it to professionals. They cannot build not every small brand, Tommy Hilfiger, they cannot again build their own delivery, own warehouse. It's impossible. So we will have this trend of everybody moving online and facing a huge bottleneck in the infrastructure part. And I think it's a very interesting theme for investments, by the way, to look at the infrastructure field. So at the basics. So what I see that we have to discuss in Russia, the basics a lot, and everything else, mobile, local, and so on, will follow once we have a good distance selling infrastructure. Based on a good distance selling infrastructure, we can build anything. And for you, especially for eBay, it's a big problem. eBay has like $200 million orders from Russia, where half is not delivered. Like, for example, I ordered 10 sculptures last year, got like 3 delivered, and the other ones, they got stuck at the border somewhere. It's a bad customer experience. It's your biggest problem. You go well to Russia, and once you're at the border, it's over. It's game over, right? So that's the truth. So that's what we have to do, and that's the main, and that's a lot of work. So when I look at this work that has to be done, it's 5 years work. So this is what I think is the main discussion topic for Russian e-commerce.
If you want to hand it over to Guy, now that we've learned that in Russia we're at a much more basic level and we're talking about lots of infrastructure, one of the things you briefly touched upon, Oskar, is also a matter of payments. I mean, we know that payments also work very differently in Russia than they do in the rest of the world. I know payments is a very big topic also for eBay. I think PayPal is one of the highlights of eBay and always saves their annual statements. So what's the trend, or what's the perspective for PayPal within eBay?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about what PayPal is doing, especially in the United States. You know, there's a few things that, in line with the trends that we've been talking about, that PayPal's been doing to enable local merchants. So one of the big things.
Okay. Not sure if it's loud enough. Good.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. I think it's back. Great. So one of the things that we recently launched is a product called PayPal Here. What PayPal Here does is it enables smaller local merchants to accept payments via PayPal and via credit cards in the physical stores. So that's one of the things that we've been doing to enable smaller merchants to process payments, again, locally. And then the other thing that we've been doing is actually creating a point-of-sale solution to allow some of the larger stores in the United States, for example, Home Depot, to have a PayPal point-of-sale solution and be able to accept payments via PayPal. So really, the bigger theme of what we're doing here is enabling, making PayPal available in the offline world, and by partnering with folks like Home Depot. That's what's happening on the U.S. level, and where we're really trying to push the envelope and run a lot of experiments and be very cutting edge. And I'd actually be interested in hearing, how does that translate to the Russian market? But this is sort of what we're doing, being driven first in the U.S. and then globally as well.
Okay.
I think there is in Russia a real big need of trusted payment system. This is still very much a cash economy. In Ozone.ru, we still do 80% cash on delivery. But we can see for industry like Ozone Travel, in the travel industry, this is the other way around. We do 60% prepayment by card. So when the customer doesn't have an option, or when he feels that it's okay, that can be trusted, because in the case of travel, he will receive automatically the e-ticket. So there is this kind of trust that can be built. Then he's actually ready for it. But at the moment, it's not really there, and a retailer like us pay absolutely stupid amount of money to potential provider. Less than a year ago, I had a discussion with a telecom telecom operator, which I won't name. And when they gave me the commission rate they wanted us to pay, I thought they had made a mistake and put a zero, one zero too much in the commission rate. So I think we had this discussion over and over again over the last, I would say, 2 years about acquiring fees for credit card being way too high for a retailer like us to push them. We had this discussion with mobile operators because I believe that mobile operators could play a very big role in mobile payment, but not at the rate that they're offering, and definitely not in the ecosystem that is existing right now. So a lot of things that remain to be done, so maybe PayPal will do it. Or we'll open a bank, I don't know.
So now with all this background on how the Russian e-commerce market works, Jan, question to you. Do you have a sort of Russian investment strategy? Are you looking to get to Russia specifically, or what's your take on Russian e-commerce for the investment side?
Well, I would like to add something to what Oskar and Maelle said. What I find fascinating, and it's driven by your cash economy, is the fact that this is the only country, and that's the innovation coming from Russia, is the only country where you have, where you start ordering online and where you actually reach the end customer physically. In fact, when you deliver the order and you take the cash. So if you think that through, they have the end customer relationship through the agent who's delivering it, and if they own the agent, they can actually build the relationship from online to physical, which I think is quite exciting. We are looking at Russia, and we have seen amazing companies here, great teams, and we will continue to do this. So I personally think this is a very fast-growing market, but I think you need to find the right target to not get into the trap that Oskar was describing, because the whole back end is extremely important, I think, here in Russia.
But you're also looking into commerce topics, or are you more into sort of digital models?
We have been looking into e-commerce. In fact, we looked at the company that Maelle bought in the end. So we like e-commerce, and we continue to do.
Okay, excellent. Guy, coming back to you, from what I understood, is eBay is very strong on this sort of break between online and offline. If you look at Milo, it's online, offline. If you look at Red Laser, which is also offline, online. When you look at eBay as a flagship, basically say, okay, we'll provide services to our vendors. What are the new services when you look at the online vendors that they want to bring to them?
Sure. So, eBay's really come a long way from being, primarily a marketplace to now being a technology platform that enables other retailers and other merchants. And so, as far as the offerings, we acquired a company called GSI Commerce. Really, what GSI does is, it powers the e-commerce experience and, quite frankly, the multi-channel commerce experience for folks like Ralph Lauren and Toys R Us and GNC. So there, GSI will actually handle, everything from the actual e-commerce experience to even doing marketing services and things of that nature for some of the largest brands in the world. So that's now part of the sort of top tier of what eBay offers for those larger merchants. And then we also acquired a company called Magento. And really, Magento is an open source platform also for enabling e-commerce and creating e-commerce sites for merchants around the world. One of the things that's very cool about Magento is it's actually an open source platform that has a tremendous amount of extensions. So the idea being that developers can actually come and create new features and new functionality, very similar to sort of an app store. You can download these extensions and your e-commerce platform learns new capabilities. So to your question about functionality, we allow developers and the developer community to actually build what users really need.
Okay. One keyword you just had is multi-channel, and I know from a discussion I had with Jan before this panel, he also very strongly believes in multi-channel. Of course, as Auto Group Russia, we've always been identified with multi-channel because we normally start with catalog and then we move into online. For the Russian side, is multi-channel a topic for you, or do you rather say, okay, it's pure online. We don't need catalogs. We don't need other channels to sell to the consumer.
When we look at the success of Otto Group in Russia, we always have the urgency to do a catalog, you know. But to some degree, multi-channel definitely is a big topic in Russia, and the reason is the trust. Trust element is so important for Russian consumers. That's the reason they pay cash. Right? Russian consumers pay after they are satisfied. If they're not satisfied, they don't pay. So they pay after delivery, they give the money. So it's a very good service for consumers. And the element is trust. So what we see is the following. We have the same business as GSI, where we empower brands. So when the brand comes online, the conversion rate is 5 to 6 times higher on the website versus a new random e-commerce company that has a maybe even better interface, right? And the key thing is sometimes they go online with the weirdest site ever, and the buy button is on the 3rd page, but still they convert 6 times better than this young social mobile everything. And the reason is they have trust. They just have, the consumer knows the company exists, it's big, and it's very important, very, very important for Russian consumers. That will give offline retailers a big chance. They have a real chance to take more than 50% of the e-commerce sales. Even in the US, the offline retailers have almost 50% of e-commerce share. I think it's about 45. In Russia, it could be 60, even 70. It only depends how aggressive they go into this field. Do they make investments or no? Or do they? So this is multi-channel e-commerce has the biggest chance in Russia. But the only real question is how much will the offline retailers invest? For us, we are pure online players, so we will not start building offline stores and so on.
I think I want to brag a tiny bit, and it's going to be easier for me because I wasn't responsible to do it. I was the CEO before me. But I think Ozone actually is already multi-channel because we have this network of pickup points where people come and deliver their orders, which are Ozone branded, and we're moving towards 2,000 of them in Russia already. And that's something that Amazon is copying us on because they've just announced, I mean, they opened, I think in Seattle, I don't remember, I mean, somewhere in the US, they say that they were opening also an offline store to see how it works. So, I mean, joke apart, I think this question of multi-channel, as Oskar say, is important because it's about building the trust. It's not about holding the inventory in the store as such, like the offline retailer do. They move from offline to online, but they keep this big offline store with the inventory. It is not either the Argos model that you can see in the UK where they have part of the inventory in the back room. But it's about building the experience, allowing the customer to decide whether he wants to go on his PC or he wants to do on his smartphone or his tablet, or he wants to go and talk to an operator over the phone, or he wants to go to a store and actually see a human being to whom he can talk and scream at if something is not right in his order. And I think, I mean, the way Ozone.ru builds the multi-channel offer is precisely that, is to make sure that whatever you want to do, whatever the way you want to talk to us, you can do it.
Okay, Jan?
If I may just add on multi-channel, if you look at e-commerce or retail, in the end it's about getting a lot of traffic, converting that traffic into buys, and hopefully getting this customer to come back to your store. And if you look at traditional retail, these people don't know much about their customers. They optimize space, they know very much about assortment, and I think they're much better in creating worlds on assortment than offline is so far. But they don't know anything about the end consumer who is buying in their stores. Whereas e-commerce is completely focused on the end consumer. So, and that's probably why, in the end, it's rather online who will turn offline again. If you take Apple, Apple is a great example, because whenever you come to an Apple store, they know exactly who you are and what you bought and so on and so forth. Another example is Nespresso. where they know which coffee you are choosing if you come to one of their stores, because they have your email address and they immediately know what you're doing. We have a company called Lumas, which is selling limited editions of art photography, and wherever they open a gallery, revenue immediately doubles. So, and I think so multi-channel in a way supports traffic, conversion, and keeping the customer, or through trust building. And we are very much interested in looking into this, and also looking at traditional offline players who have been moving into online and who are trying now to bridge this different experience, because I think that can create a lot of additional value.
Well, I'd say that's definitely good news for Otto. Thank you very much. Normally we get bashed for our multi-channel strategy, so this time I'm very glad to hear some positive strategy and trends for us. We have about 5 minutes left, 6 minutes to be precise. Any questions from you to this very great team here? No questions? Russian e-commerce is so... Yeah, please. Well, yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Mark Fisher from Bauer Media Group here in Russia. I promised Maelle I wouldn't embarrass her, so I won't. But I did have a question. There's a lot of talk about how e-commerce is growing, what the potential is in the market, but how does the panel expect to drive traffic? I mean, what is your model for growing the number of people that come to the site? How do you convert that to sales? Because ultimately you're still talking about an emerging market. It's not established here, obviously. So how are you short-term and long-term planning to drive your users?
Okay, so I think, there are many different things that needs to be done, and it's never an easy answer, otherwise everybody will be doing it and will be successful. But I think when we talk about the way we look at it, the first thing is we say the internet penetration is growing. So even if we don't do much, just by the fact that more and more people get access to internet and more people get access to good internet, to broadband, then there is just a natural growth of the market. And then depending on the source, people estimate that to be between 15 for the most pessimistic people, up to 25, 30 for the most optimistic. So that would be the natural growth of the market. Then there is for us, and I would assume the same thing for Copy VIP, there is the growth in the regions, which for Ozone.ru is mainly driven by the opening of this pick-up point I was talking about. Because when customers finally see that, first they see our brand because it's going to be at the top of the store, and then they understand that they can be delivered and it's going to be quick, it's going to be next to their house, it's going to be very easy, then they start coming. And we see an absolute direct correlation between the opening of a pick-up point and the sales we make in that region, which is the reason why we're looking at opening 4,000 of these pick-up points in the next 2 to 3 years. Then there is the supply issue, because we are in the country where the disposable income now is relatively good, or it's good enough for people to actually be real serious shoppers. But a lot of time they just don't have the goods in front of them to buy. So just by allowing them to have a wider assortment easily delivered to their house, we just create this demand, or fulfill this demand. And then, and I'll stop there, and then obviously there is a lot that needs to be done on the usual marketing tools, because this is also a market that is being developed. Google and Yandex are doing a lot to improve search, to improve all the context advertising, which is still in my opinion, in its infancy here. We could do better, we could do more, not only from Google and Yandex side, but from the retailer side. We're just learning to use really well these tools. Affiliate program are also being developed. Email marketing is also something that right now is underdeveloped in Russia, though the number of spams keeps increasing, as I can hear from customers. So there is so many things that can be done from a marketing perspective to attract people's attention and then show them exactly what they need, because we know for sure that they need it because the supply is not there, so we are able to provide that.
Right, as I just learned, we're out of time for our panel. As we heard, there's lots of opportunities in e-commerce in Russia. Good luck exploiting it, and thank you very much for my panel.
So thank you for this high hour of DLD insights in e-commerce.